friends, welcome to the Jazz Ranch. Hipsters, flipsters, and figure-popping daddies and groovy chicks. You know, we got a blizzard going on outside here, and it's only November 15th. What's going on? Did we end up in Alaska? The horses are freaking out. Anyway, I've had requests from subscribers. A number of subscribers have asked me to talk about the modes, to explain the modes and the theory behind them, how they work, how they apply to music in general, and also to jazz improvisation. So I'm going to give you an extensive video on this, about 30 minutes, so you can hang in there if you like, or you can fast forward through it and find things you want to learn about, or whatever you want to do. And preceding that, I have 3 quotes from 3 great minds, 3 great geniuses of different periods in history. And the first one comes from Ludwig van Beethoven. He said this about music. He said, "Music is the one incorporeal entrance into the higher world of knowledge, which comprehends mankind, but which mankind cannot comprehend." That's pretty deep, I think. Anyway, here's the second one from Einstein, Albert Einstein. This is about music, knowledge, and the world. He said, "It occurred to me by intuition, and music was the driving force behind that intuition. My discovery was the result of musical perception." So that's a good one. I think he's saying that we learn things through intuition, but we learn them deeper if we study or have a studious approach to them. In other words, an academic approach, which is what we're doing this evening. So that's a good one. And here's one by a modern day genius I'd call Frank Zappa. He said this: "There are more love songs than anything else. If songs could make you do something, we'd all love one another." There's irony in there, I think, but Frank was great with words. Okay, welcome. Now, let's just say, pretend that you're sitting here next to me in my living room here at the piano, and I'm going to tell you about some concepts that have to do with improvisation. Now, these concepts are what you call academic. In other words, they're studious kind of things, or things you would read in a book, and necessarily would not teach you how to improvise on any other level than can be explained on a mental or an intellectual point of view. And improvisation involves so much of a feeling level and things that you can learn through experience, like going to jazz clubs, listening to records, trying to imitate other musicians. In other words, what you're doing with your ears, that an intellectual approach to it is only supplementary to that. The best part of it is, and you know, if you want to have an example of that, Errol Garner learned without even reading music. He learned to be one of the greatest musicians of all time. I will say that. And, you know, but a lot of them do incorporate academia. And so that's what I'm going to do with you with the major modes. Now, the major modes are something you'll learn in music school, maybe your first year. And I'm going to base them on the scale tone sevenths, which are the 7th chords you create from a scale, building block chords, 1, the 3rd, the root, the 3rd, the 5th, and the 7th. So we're going to start with the key of C, and mostly we're going to be in the key of C here, but you're going to have to transpose all of these to the other 11 keys. You know, there's 12 keys. So this is a big task, but nevertheless, you just start at one point and go little steps at a time. So we're going to start with the scale tone 7ths, which are these: C major 7. Now, what I'm doing is I'm building triads and adding the 7th. So I'm building chords in this way: root, 3rd, 5th, 7th. Then I'm going right up the major scale, whatever it may be. In this case, it's going to be C, playing these scale tone 7ths. So the C major 7 is 1, D minor 7 is the 2 chord, E minor 7 is the 3 chord, F major 7 is the 4 chord, G dominant 7 is the 5 chord, A minor 7 is the 6 chord, and B half diminished 7 or B minor 7 flat 5 is the 7 chord, and then we're back to 1. So there's only 7 chords there, but they're very specific in how they function and how they're described in terms of their quality. In other words, the 1 chord is a major 7, so it's a major chord, right? The 2 and the 3 are minor chords. The 4 chord is major, a major chord. The 5 chord is also major, and the 6 chord is minor, and then the 7 chord is also minor, but even more than minor, it's diminished. So it has, you know, now you want to study your intervals to understand this in depth, but let's just go back now, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to start with the 1 chord in C, which is C major 7. Now I'm going to play the C scale. So you just go right up the scale on all the white notes starting on C. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 2, and we go back. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So you have there the first mode, which is Ionian. Now, the thing to understand about the Ionian mode, it is really the major scale for all 12 scales. So no matter what scale you play it in, if you play it in F, you play the F major scale, that's F Ionian. If you play the G major scale, that's G Ionian. If you play a D major scale, you know, that's D Ionian. It doesn't matter. E flat major scale, it's all Ionian. So that's the first mode. Now, what modes are, this is important to understand. All that modes are, and when we're talking about major modes, is they are steps of the major scale. In other words, Ionian is the first step. You're creating a major scale starting on its first step. The second step is Dorian. So if you're creating a major scale starting on its second step, it becomes Dorian. Now that's a minor chord. Now why? Because we're relating that second step to what would be major, what would be the major scale of that key. In other words, in C, this is C major. But if we go to D, D major has 2 sharps. So if we, you know, put a flat 3 there and a flat 7 there, now we have a minor scale. Now we have to call that something else. Now that's called Dorian. So now we're going to go to step 2, Dorian. So the second step would be to go up, move the chord up 1 to the 2 chord. We're in C now, so we're going to move up to the 2 chord. Now the 2 chord, if we define it, is D minor 7. That's the quality of it. Now, so it isn't a major chord. Why do we know that? Because that's a minor interval there. It would have to be there to be major. See, so when we go from C to D, we have to go there to be major and to be like that. And if we want a major 7th, we have to have that C sharp. Why? Because the key of D has the 2 sharps, right? Those two, the F sharp and the C sharp. So if we're going to, we need to define each chord. The 2 chord is minor 7. And the mode is called Dorian. Now to explain this, you have to just ask yourself this question. If it's Dorian, that means it's the second step of a major scale. So what if we're say D Dorian, if that's the second step of a major scale, what is the major scale? Well, the major scale is C, because you know, D is the second step of a major scale. Now, we have to define this new scale that is using just the notes in the C scale. We have to define it according to what the notes would be in the D major scale. You see, that's where we come up with the definition. And you'll see this on the sheet. And this is explained this way. Dorian is a minor scale which has a minor 3rd and a minor 7th interval. So it has this minor 3rd interval and this minor 7th interval. In other words, you'll see on the sheet it goes 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, 6, flat 7, 1. So there you have it. Now remember in C it was just all 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. You know? Now we're doing 1, 2, flat 3, 4, 5, 6, flat 7. Now we have 2 flats That's a minor scale. You'll see how this is applied later on, but this is Dorian now. So the 1 scale is Ionian, it's major. The 2 chord is Dorian, and it's minor, and it has a flat 3 and a flat 7 in it. And actually, of all the minor scales, it's the brightest one. The others you'll see are darker. Okay, so now up to the 3rd step, it's an E minor 7. How do we know that? Well, because E major, you know, the scale of E key of E has 4 sharps: F sharp, G sharp, C sharp, D sharp. So if we make it minor, now we've altered it. So we're up to 3 now. So now this scale, starting on E, but playing a C scale, now we can define it this way. This is the darkest of the minor scales other than the half diminished. So it has a flat 2 in it, that makes it darker. A flat 3, a 4, a 5, a flat 6, a flat 7. There you go. So it has 4 notes that are flatted from the major scale. It has the 2 is flatted, the 3 is flatted, 4, 5, the 6 is flatted, the 7 is flatted. For major, see, the 2 would be like this. You see, so you see those flats in there, these 2 and these 2 up here. So now you have 4 flats in there, and you have this. So you can hear that. So that's your Phrygian mode. Moving right along now, the 4th step would be F major 7. But however, when we play a C scale against the 4 chord, we have this. Remember, we have to have all white notes. So we have this alteration right there, which is, if we were in the key of F, it would be, has 1 flat. So now we've altered that 4th step of the scale by raising it a half step. Now we have a sharp 4 or a flatted 5th, however you want to look at it. So there's our Lydian. That's a great scale. So there's your Lydian. Now I'm going to show you examples of tunes that have these use of these particular scales in them. Okay, we're going to Mixolydian. Okay, step 5 now, we move up like this. Now we're on a G7. Now this is the only chord in the system that is dominant 7th, which means it has the tritone there, which is a flatted 5th. It wants to resolve to C. So this is our dominant chord, this wanting to resolve to the tonic chord of C. So we're always pulled, all music is based on 1 and 5, you know. Most music is based on some relationship between the root of the chord or whatever key you're in, and it's dominant. You know, like you can create hundreds of melodies just based, you know. 5, 1, 5, 1 there. So, you know. So now 5 is dominant 7th. Now, what it has in it, if we play the scale, it's called Mixolydian. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. The only thing that's altered is the 7, which is flatted. So it's a major chord with that flatted 7th in it. Now it can also be a sus chord, suspended 4th. So you can also use, and I'm going to show you an example of that. This is one of the most common scales that you're going to play in a lot of music. That and the Ionian, because you're going to be playing from 1 to the 5 and the 5 to the 1. Those are the 2 most important, probably, relationships in all of music, is its root chord or root scale and its 5, or its dominant, you know. And the other one would be the subdominant, which would be the 4 chord. So now we'll move on to the Aeolian. Now the sixth step would be, or the sixth mode would be Aeolian. So it'd be up here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now that's a minor 7 chord. So we're going to play an C scale starting on A and define it in terms of its major scale. So it has a minor 3rd, perfect 4th, perfect 5th, minor 6, minor 7th. Alright, so there you have three altered notes. And this is the one that is most commonly used with the relative major because it is the relative minor. A minor is relative to C major. So, you know, for tunes like hundreds of tunes that are in a minor key, like My Funny Valentine and so on, you will see that these songs are using the Aeolian mode. Okay, so the last mode we're going to talk about in the major mode system is the Locrian, which is step 7. So we just go up to the 7th step. Now that chord is a half diminished chord, or a B minor 7 flat 5. Now if you wanted to play a B major 7, it would be this. You know, so we're lowering the 3rd, we're lowering the 5th, and we're lowering the 7th, the major 7th there. So we have that, the half diminished. If we want a full diminish, you have to lower the 7th another step. So this is a half diminished chord, and it fits that scale built on the 7th step of a C scale, like this. So that's the Locrian mode. So it's a lot of tunes where you're going to use that particular chord, particularly if it's a 2 chord going to 5 and then resolving to 1 like that. So like that is very common in jazz. And so that Locrian mode is going to be something you want to learn. Like that. Okay, if I haven't confused you enough yet, I have a new take on this, a different take on this to show you a different perspective. I was showing you the modes now from the perspective of the C major scale. How about we take them just from the perspective of the C note being a root? Now, if C is the root, then Ionian, of course, is C major. But now, what if I want to play C Dorian? Well, the question I ask myself is, C is what? Is the second step of what major scale? You see, it's all about major scale. So C is the second step of B flat major. So C Dorian would be playing a B flat major scale, but starting on C. So now we know it's a C minor 7. We have those two notes flatted, the 3rd and the 7th. Now what if I ask, well, I want to play a C Phrygian. Phrygian would be the 3rd step, or the 3rd mode. So what major scale is C the 3rd step of? That'd be A flat. So now we have 4 flats. We have those flats. So now we have this. That's why that Phrygian scale is very dark. We have that flat 2, flat 3, flat 6, flat 7. Next one is Lydian. So we ask ourselves, what major scale is C the 4th step of? G major. Now we're into a sharp key, which has that 1 sharp in it. So now we're going to play a C scale starting on C scale with the F sharp in it. Next one would be, after that would be Mixolydian. So that'd be the 5th step. That's the 5th step. C is the 5th step of an F major. So now we're going to play an F major scale starting on C, which has the B flat in it, of course, right? That's your C dominant 7th, with that flat 7 with the major 3rd. Next one would be Aeolian. That'd be the relative minor. That'd be E flat. So E flat scale starting on C, 6th step. Aeolian is 6, so now we have those 3 flats, C minor 7. So you see we have 3 varieties of minor scales. We have the Dorian, we have the Phrygian, and we have the Aeolian. And the last one is the Locrian, which is really a minor scale as well, but it has a flat 5 in it. And this is the tricky one that relates to the 7th step of a major scale, which in this case C would be the 7th step of D flat major. So now we play a D flat major scale. Starting on C, we have 5 flats. So there you have it: D flat, E flat, G flat, A flat, B flat, C. So there you have them. Now you want to be able to do this with every note being a root, you know. And in the sharp keys, those notes are going to be altered to become natural. The sharps, you know, like for minor, E major is going to be E minor is going to be lowering the sharp, the G sharp, to a G natural. So there's another way of looking at it, and you want to see it from both points of view. I'm going to use the tune Autumn Leaves and talk about the chords and the modes. I'm going to be playing into the key of F, so that means the major scale is there. That's Ionian. First chord is G minor 7. So that's the 2nd step of F. I asked myself, what scale is G the 2nd step of F? So now I'm going to play an F scale starting on G. So that's my scale for improvisation right there. So goes to C7. Now that would be Mixolydian because it's the 5th step of F. So there's your scale. It's an F scale starting on C. There's your F major, which of course is Ionian. Then there's B flat major, which is the 4 chord. Now remember, that's Lydian, so you have that note in there. Now here's the Locrian in F. In other words, the 7th step. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. That's the half diminished chord, right? Now here's something a little bit different. I need a 5 now to get to the D minor, which is the relative minor. So I need that to be an A7, so I'm going to alter that chord there. Because normally 3 would be A minor. I don't want that. I want A dominant. And there's where that C sharp comes in there in the melody, you see? Like that. So there you have it. So we used the Dorian, the Mixolydian, the Ionian, the Lydian, the Locrian, and then this altered dominant 7th to give us the 5 in the leading tone to the D minor, which would be the Aeolian, or the relative minor. So now you're probably asking me, why do I need to learn all these modes? Do I need to know these to improvise? And I have to, okay, I'm playing the Aeolian mode now. Now I have to think, oh, now Mixolydian. Okay, now Dorian. Okay, now what is the Phrygian mode? Is there here and there? No, these are just guides. This is a map. This is like sort of an intellectual guide to understanding music in depth. Doesn't have anything to do with the fact that you go out there and you listen to records and you listen to musicians and you go to jam sessions and you study at school and you get points from your friends and you practice. You know, you practice licks, you learn things off of records and this kind of thing. In other words, you have to put all this stuff together. But if you're the kind of person that likes an intellectual approach to things, and you like to look at things in depth, you know, these modes have been around for hundreds of years, and the Greeks used them, and, you know, like people before that, you know, so they're an important thing to understand. You just understand the underlying principles of music and how it works and how scales work, and, you know, how they relate to creating certain melodies and supporting certain chords and all that sort of thing. So it's a good thing to learn for that reason. So we'll wrap up now, but please write to me, and we're going to have part 2. I'm going to give you specific songs and illustrations of how to use these modes in songs to make them practical. Here's a quick look into my book. It's chapter 23 of volume 2, Basic Jazz Improvisation, the Modes of the Major Scale. Here they're laid out for you, and here's the application of the modes, and then here's applying the modes to 7th chords, and then you have exercises and improvisation. Now this is all laid out in a 3-ring binder. It's very practical. You can take pages out to photocopy and it lies flat against the music stand. And if you can't afford the book, just write to me. I always give discounts and student discounts, and I give a lot of books away. Signing off from the Jazz Ranch. If you're still with me, then I appreciate your hanging out there with me till the end. I know this has been a long video, but you know, if you will write to me, I always try to respond. So if you have questions, you know, about this subject, you know, I know this is an involved subject. If you have questions, please write to me. I'll try to answer them. And if I haven't gotten back to you, either you sent me an email, it just means, you know, write to me again. I maybe have missed it, or, you know, emails, you know, sort of disappear through magic somehow. And until next time, in the words of my great friend Hermie Dressel, who's still up there looking down at us in pity. No, just kidding. And his words were to me always when I left. He said, "Swing loose, brother." And we'll see you next time around. Bye-bye.